imagination simply contained in the mind? Or does it tap into an unseen world with messages waiting to be told? There is a place where legends cross over into our world, where strange visions and whispers beckon, and superstition takes hold. Step into the Black Cat's shadow.
Welcome back to the Black Cat Shadow, a horror movie podcast where we look at some of your favorite horror movies and how they parallel mythology, folklore, urban legends, and true crime. This is episode 17, and this is our holiday episode, so Merry Christmas everybody that celebrates Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody else. So we're going to be talking about of A Christmas Horror Story, and in that they feature the character of Krampus. So we're going to be talking about Krampus. And then we're also going to be looking at some, what appears to be some real-life Krampus sightings, or what is called the Goat Man. So we're going to be talking about that. And then we're going to do a feature review of A Christmas Horror Story. And as always, you can reach out to us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Black Cat Podcast, and on Horror Amino. Just look up Black Cat Shadow on those, and you'll find us. And you can find us also on Twitter. It's at Black Cat Podcast. Our email is blackcatpodcast@gmail.com. And so, you can send us an email, say hi, give us, movie suggestions that you think would be good. Movies that have some interesting mythology to explore. Or even if you have like an urban legend that might tie into a movie and you want to suggest that, let us know. We want to make you guys a part of this show too, so that's a way for you to do that. And also, if you are on the hunt for horror DVDs and Blu-rays, go take a look at my eBay store. Just go on our website, www.blackcatshadow.com, and click on the eBay link there, and you can find all my movies I have for sale there. It's a way for you to pick up some horror movies and also to help out the podcast as well. And joining me as always is my faithful co-host Dakota. How's it going today, Dakota?
Pretty good. I'm enjoying the Christmas season a little bit, trying to make it through. I know it's a tough season for us all just because of the financial part of it, but other than that, I'm great.
Yeah, I hear you on the financial part. It's like buying all the presents, and yeah, it's tough. But so we're going to talk about one of the urban legends, or one of the mythological type things that's brought up in A Christmas Horror Story, and that is Krampus. And Dakota, you had done some quite a bit of research on Krampus, so go ahead and share with us what you found out about Krampus.
All right, well, to start, Krampus is, it's been debated what Krampus really is. People say that he's a demon, half goat, half demon, that kind of works alongside with Saint Nicholas, and he goes into homes of the naughty children, naughty families, and he takes the children out of their beds and kidnaps them. Other stories say that he tortures them and kills them. And we go all the way over to this actually originated in like Austria and Bavaria, Croatia. A lot of the European countries that believe in this, there's a lot of stories that go into it. There's even festivals. Right here, there's actually a parade that takes place in, I believe, Salzburg, Austria. And the parade is called Krampuslauf, or translated in English is called the Krampus Run, where people dress up as Krampus himself in the ways they see him. And normally it's like an anthropomorphic goat man with the face of a demon. And it's very interesting. Some people refer to him as a horn god, which is a pagan god, actually, which kind of goes into a Christian rite called Bind the Devil. But I'm going to read a quote here from an anthropologist in 1975. His name is John J. Hahnemann or something like that, I believe. The St. Nicholas Festival we are describing incorporates cultural elements widely distributed in Europe. In some cases, going back to pre-Christian times, Nicholas himself became popular in Germany around the 11th century. The feast dedicated to this patron of children is only one winter occasion in which children are the objects of special attention, others being the Martinmas, the Feast of the Holy Innocents, and the New Year's Day. Masked devils acting boisterously and making nuisances of themselves are known in Germany since at least the 16th century, while animal masked devils combining dreadful comic antics appeared in medieval church plays. A large literature, much of it being European folklorists, bears on these subjects. Austrians in the community we studied are quite aware of heathen elements being blended with Christian elements in the St. Nicholas customs and other traditional winter ceremonies. They believe Krampus derives from a pagan supernatural who was assimilated to the Christian devil. What I'm kind of getting at with that is we're taking kind of Krampus and mixing in with our own cultures for Christmas, and I think what they're trying to say is Krampus kind of identifies with the darker half of Christmas, like our greed, our basically just our faults with Christmas when it comes to this time of year, like how we're all so caught up in the holiday and so caught up in our own lives, and that we forget what the true holiday is about.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it. I never even thought about that, but yeah, I mean that makes sense. You have Saint Nick and then Krampus being the reflections of each other.
Another side with Krampus, there's actually here's a few places that they actually have kind of like a celebration of Krampus, kind of way of revering him. There's actually a Krampus notch in Washington D.C. There's the Toronto Krampus Ball, the Chicago Krampus Ball, the L.A. Krampus Fest, San Francisco Krampus Crawl, Dallas Krampus Society, Krampus Loft Philadelphia, Bloomington Krampus Night, and Krampus Notch Edmonton. That's just a few places. There are celebrations all over the world. A couple years back, I saw a few pictures online on the Facebook page for Comic-Con. There was a guy that dressed up as Krampus, and it was incredible. He took the more like the modern, what we would see in as kind of like a anti-Santa Claus. Instead of a goat man, he still had the horns and everything, but he was more human-like and wore a red cloak like Santa would, kind of like what we saw in that really cheesy Krampus movie. Okay.
Yeah, I still need to see that movie. I have not seen it yet. I'm kind of a slacker on that. Yeah, and it's cool to see how Krampus has become like a mascot for people, like it's kind of become a mascot for the horror community for the Christmas time, because Christmas is not really associated with horror movies, so to have an anti-hero, or like somebody like Krampus to celebrate, it's something that horror fans can embrace. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and along with Krampus, there's actually a few other things that come out of like Western Germany that are very interesting. I didn't dig too deep into it because it's not really going into our topic. But there's Belsnickel, which is a figure that's associated with the midwinter period, along with Persta, it's another part of Western Germanic folklore, who has their own procession, Perstenlauf, and then there's the Yule Goat. It's just a figure that's associated with the midwinter period also. Just a couple things for people to look up. Some very interesting things in there. But I mean, that's all I really have about Krampus, other than his appearance, which I mean, we kind of went over with the half goat, half devil thing. But if you guys do some more research into him, you'll see a lot of different costumes of people wearing these crazy masks. I'm trying to get some stuff together so I can do a Krampus makeup, and I still haven't got it done yet. It's just been so busy.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, definitely. That would be cool. One of the things that I always wonder about is like so he takes the bad kids, the kids of the bad, he takes them back to his lair, or, where is that? I never really could find much about, a lot of people just say, well, it's just the underworld or hell even, and he basically just kind of he either eats them or tortures them and then eats them, or he just makes them live there for a year and like makes them his slave or whatever. But it's always an interesting legend, and it seems like in Europe they're not afraid to incorporate like the darker aspects of the legends, and so I think that's kind of cool. Because I think here in America, Christmas is it's very nice and happy, which I guess that's the spirit of Christmas is giving and being nice to one another, which that's all good. But I just like being a horror movie fan. It's just cool to have that horror element mixed in with Christmas. And so it's cool to have these old European legends that we can pull from for that. And so, thinking about Krampus, I was just thinking about, different creatures or different things from mythology that kind of mirror that, and you can look at the satyrs, I think that's how you pronounce it, from Greek mythology and what you described, like the god Pan, the horned god, from the pagan beliefs and the Greek mythology and things like that, and how those things kind of evolved into the devil that we know today. So it's kind of interesting. But then I was also looking at, has there been any reports of people actually like seeing a Krampus figure in real life, or like a creature like that? And what I found during my research is there is a creature that people have supposedly spotted called the Goat Man.
Whilst the people of New Jersey believe that Satan lives amongst them, a few hundred miles away in Maryland, the locals feel he takes on the form of the Goatman. As with the Jersey Devil, is this creature fact or fiction?
And there's several different versions of it, according to urban legends. But basically what the Goatman is, it's a bipedal humanoid, resembling the faun or the satyr of ancient Greek mythology. And, that mythology goes way back to like 520 BC. So anyway, the Goatman, he has the lower body of a goat and the upper body of a man with ram's horns growing out of his head. And the creature's size varies from one report to the next, ranging from 4 foot tall up to as large as 12 foot tall. But usually it's between 6 and 8 feet tall, I think, are a lot of the reports. And they kind of make these high-pitched squealing noises too. And some of the origin stories, like where some of the urban legends say that the Goatman came from, they either say he was like a demonic entity that was summoned somehow by devil worshippers, and that kind of matches along with the devil imagery. But then also there's a more of a sci-fi origin to him. That there's this urban legend of an experiment gone awry at the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center in Maryland, and they say that a scientist he mixed human DNA with goats, and this either infected the scientist conducting the experiment, or the scientist created a new human-goat hybrid. The stories kind of go back and forth between those two situations. And so the Goatman is largely associated with Maryland, although reports come in from around the country. The creature is known to dwell in wooded areas or under railroad bridges, and somehow, he is reported to have an axe that he uses to kill his victims too. And, somehow he gained an axe somewhere along the way. So the first well-known American Goatman was the creature known as the Poplick Monster, who was regularly seen near the Poplick Creek Railroad Bridge in Louisville, Kentucky during the 40s and the 50s. Now, supposedly the creature hypnotizes people, convincing them to follow him up to a railroad trestle where they meet their doom. So the span of the railroad bridge is so long that if a train comes when you've walked halfway across, there is no way to run back in time before the train hits you. And so tragically, the curse seems to be self-fulfilling because Some people have actually gone looking for the monster and ended up being killed. And actually, as recent as April 23rd of this year, there was a tourist from Ohio that got hit by a train while walking on the trestle. And I think even like that bridge is now off limits. You know, like if the police catch you walking on, you get arrested. You know, but I guess you have to kind of use common sense if you want to go looking for these things. But you know, so as far as the Maryland stories go, where a large portion of these are centralized in, the Goat Man was first spotted in 1957. You know, eyewitnesses saw this horned humanoid creature. And then in the same area in 1962, the Goat Man was accused of killing 12 hikers, which were, there was like 12 children and 2 adults. And according to the legend, the group, they were hiking a bit too close to the Goat Man's cave, and, you know, so they paid the price with their lives. Okay, so the police are involved, but they never really reported the incident, and so who knows if this actually really happened or not, and the story goes they never really determined what killed the hikers. In July of 1969, there was a creature resembling the Goat Man, but also described as having scales and gills, was reported around Lake Worth, Texas. The headline in the newspapers read, "Fishy Man Goat Terrifies Couples Parked at Lake Worth." You know, and so this was just another sighting of a Goat Man type creature in the late 60s. But then I guess some high school students had actually admitted to authorities that they had pulled a prank on locals by wearing a gorilla costume and parading around the lake. So I guess maybe that one was not true. But I know there's been some more recent sightings of the Lake Worth monster, is what it's called. So that's kind of interesting to read about some of those accounts of some supposed, you know, Goat Man sightings, or, you know, kind of something that's kind of like Krampus. You know, unfortunately, there's not really any evidence to support any of these. It's all kind of anecdotal evidence, but it's fun to read about and to think about. Alright, so I guess we'll go ahead and go into our feature review of A Christmas Horror Story.
Christmas. Christmas. The most magical time of year.
Now tell me we will find the perfect Christmas tree.
It's Christmas. Christmas is all about forgiveness and family and tradition.
Santa, lots of kids are depending on tonight going off without a hit.
But in Bailey Downs this Christmas, it's different.
Exactly 1 year ago, last Christmas Eve, the school was the scene of an unimaginable crime.
You still want to go down there just for some stupid school assignment?
It gets through any door in the school.
This is Krampus, right?
What's a Krampus?
He's like an anti-Santa Claus. A demon who punishes the naughty. He whips them and chains them up, stuff like that.
That's fun.
It's the elves. I fear they may all become infected.
We're trapped down here, and there's a psychopath on our loose.
Bring the changeling back to the forest. That ain't your son.
Did you not see what he did?
A Christmas Horror Story was released on October 2nd, 2015. It was directed by Grant Harvey, who also did Ginger Snaps Back, The Beginning. Also directed by Steve Hoban, who directed Ginger Snaps 2, Unleashed. The cast, really the only people that I recognized, the only familiar people in the cast was, of course, William Shatner as DJ Dangerous Dan. You know, and everybody, I think everybody knows who William Shatner is. He was in the original Star Trek. He's been in lots of other movies and TV shows and commercials and stuff. He's very iconic. And then also there's an actor named Julian Richings. He played a character known as Gerhardt. So I recognize him from some other things, like Wrong Turn. He was one of the hillbilly killers called Three Finger. So I recognize him from that. And so basically, like the plot of A Christmas Horror Story is, it starts off with DJ Dangerous Dan, played by William Shatner, starting his Christmas Eve broadcast. And the different stories they're not really told by Dangerous Dan but they just kind of cut away to each story throughout the movie. So all the stories are happening at the same time, So it's not like a normal anthology. All the stories are all kind of interwoven. You kind of flip back and forth between each story. So one story is about some teens that want to make a documentary about a murder at a school, and the school's closed for a Christmas break, so they sneak in, and they end up getting locked in, and then where things begin happening. Another story takes place at the North Pole, and Santa Claus has to battle his elves, which have become zombies. The next story is a family goes to get a Christmas tree. They go to this private property. They sneak on there because they have some really nice trees there, and they think that it's remote and nobody will see them. So while they're there on the land, their son gets lost. But they do eventually find him, and then they all go home with their tree. But then the son starts acting strange. So it's kind of like, what's going on with the son? And then another story is the last story. Not really the last, they all happen at the same time, like I said, but the last story to be mentioned is, so a man wants to get in the good graces of his estranged aunt. So he takes his wife and kids to meet her. And while they're at her house, their son breaks a Krampus statue. And so the aunt gets pretty mad and tells them to leave. So, on their way home, they're leaving. On their way home, they get run off the road by a creature or something. You don't really get a good look at it. And so they're stranded in the woods and they're being stalked by someone or something. So that's basically your plot of the movie. So Dakota, what are some things about this that you liked?
Well, with the whole movie in general, we have a lot of really awesome characters, especially Gerhardt. I do like Julian Richings. People who don't know about him, anybody who's seen the show Supernatural, he actually plays Death in that show. Pretty interesting there. All 4 stories have every basic element of horror that we could actually imagine. We talked about them like what we call our modern horror, what we call the old horror. They kind of blend them together. I remember we talked about how horrors have evolved over the years, and we've gotten from like the jump scares to now like the sexually based horror. So there's kind of like a lot of sexual tension between a lot of like especially in the first story. Not to like ruin it for anybody, but there is a lot of sexual tension in that story just because the characters are so young and because of the backstory. And then like with the story of the police officer and his family, I mean, we're going into some older stories there, and I really like it. To me, the movie is kind of cheesy. As a whole, it's cheesy, but it's very convincing as a horror movie. I don't know about you, but in that story about the kids in the school, that first jump scare in the video that they're watching really gets to me.
Yeah, I remember there was a lot of like jump scares in that one. And I don't know, like they made me jump, but like overall, I think that the story, like, I don't know, that was probably my least favorite of the bunch, was the teenager story, just because I don't know, like the story wasn't very interesting. It just like I was getting kind of confused about what was going on, and maybe that's part of like the format of the whole movie in general. Like it flips back and forth between the stories, but I just kind of forgot what was happening in that one. It just seemed like to me like the story was just kind of a mess. Of course, I liked William Shatner. He was great. He's really funny in this one. It does have some decent gore, and the acting was good too. The set design was really good, especially like Santa's headquarters. The aunt's house is pretty cool, and the school that the teenagers were at was pretty creepy. But I thought, like in the teenager story, I thought that the mannequins, like in that room that they were staying in, was actually pretty freaky. But they didn't really use the mannequins at all. It was more about the ghosts. But I didn't really find the ghosts all that scary in that one.
Yeah, I mean the ghosts themselves weren't scary, but I mean, you remember like the very opening of the movie where they're watching the video on the tablet. That one jump scare where the girl's body falls from the ceiling.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the only part that really scared me. I mean, I wasn't expecting that at all. I was expecting to come around the corner and then to see something that was just really creepy. But I did like how they tied in every character kind of like the police officer from the first one was the police officer that was involved in his own story, and then Dangerous Dan, his grandchildren were the family that were being hunted by the monster.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and then Caprice, the daughter from the family, is friends with the kids, the teenagers. And then, let's see here. In the last one, the Santa Claus story, not to reveal too much, but Santa has more than he's bargaining for, and he kind of relates to the family's story a little bit.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like all these stories are interwoven, so it ties them all together in some ways. And Santa Claus versus the zombie elves. That one was really cheesy, but it was fun. I think this movie, for me, it felt like a Sci-Fi Channel movie in parts of it. There was some obvious CGI in it. I think at the beginning, especially where it showed the North Pole, Santa's headquarters or whatever. That looked like a lot of computer generated graphics. And I think like in the Krampus story, with the family that's stranded in their car, like the part where the creature runs in front of the car, I think that kind of looks like some bad CGI there. But I really liked the family getting the Christmas tree like in the woods. That story was really creepy. I like that one a lot because you just don't know what's going on with that kid. He's just acting really creepy, and he is doing some weird things. Something's not right with him. But then I also like the stranded family story. You find out what they're being chased by, but you don't really see it right off the bat, and that's what I like. It kind of builds up some good suspense. And I think that this movie as a whole, it wasn't predictable. I think, especially with the ending, I was like, well, I was really surprised with that. I think it was a really good twist at the end. And like I said, there was some good practical effects. Krampus looks really good in this. The makeup they did well. The zombie elves look pretty good. So which segment was your favorite, Dakota?
For me, it comes down between the family and Krampus, and the family with the little boy. It's kind of a toss up, just because both stories are very, very reminiscent about the ancient lore. Specifically, the Krampus story. There's a lot of things in that you wouldn't expect. A lot of kind of plot twists, but not to give too much away. It does mess with your head when you see where Krampus came from.
Yeah.
I think that was the best part for me, was seeing where Krampus came from.
Yeah, I definitely was not expecting it, So yeah, it's like I said, this movie's not predictable. The way it ends is really good. Overall, I was surprised with this movie that I liked it as much as I did. I figured I'd probably like it because I like cheesy B movies, but at the same time, it was a decent movie, and there was some cheesiness to it, but it was just a good overall movie. Like I said, good acting, good production values, good effects, everything. So yeah, so I guess we'll go ahead and get into our ratings then. I guess I'll go ahead and go first. This is a good Christmas horror story. This is a good Christmas horror movie. That it's probably one that I could see watching, on a regular basis, like for a Christmas horror movie. Like if you have a Christmas horror marathon, I could see fitting this one in there. I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. I'm going to say definitely go see it. Right now it's streaming on Netflix, so if you have a Netflix subscription, you can see it on there. So, what's your rating, Dakota?
Overall, I'm going to go ahead and give it. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 7 out of 10. Just because I can appreciate the makeups, I can appreciate the character developments. Just in the short time that they were there. For being a cheesy movie and being very being kind of taking advantage of the elements it had in it. It's a great movie. Also, if you don't have Netflix, you can get it on Google Play, I believe. It's probably, you can rent it for like $2.99, I believe. But yeah, it fits in with the Christmas spirit, and fits in with some of those Christmas horror movies that you can find out there.
Yeah, so, and as we wrap up this holiday episode, I want to give a shout out to a few podcasts that have helped us out, like gave us shout outs on their podcast and like stood by us. And so it's been really cool to have people, let us know that they're listening and that they like what we're doing. So, and all three of these podcasts are really good podcasts. They're well done and they're very entertaining. So I want to let you guys know about the Horrorcast if you don't already listen to them. They are 4 friends that they review horror movies. They usually do an older horror movie and a newer horror movie on each episode. And this next year they're going to be doing a major focus on slasher movies. They're going to be talking about some obscure stuff, so you'll be able to hear some obscure slashers. But it's Walshy, Mark Nadeau, Revenant Vin, and Horror Gal Susan on there. I just want to give them a shout out. And once again, they're called the Horrorcast. You can find them on Twitter at the HCast. And also, they have a really cool Facebook group. Just look up the Horrorcast. You can find it on there. There's lots of people on there sharing horror type related things. The next one's called Horror Corridor, and it's actually a solo cast with a guy named Mr. Watson, Dustin Watson, and he does a really good job. It's really entertaining. He comes at his horror movie reviews with more of an academic approach, so they're very informative. And like I said, the production level is top notch in his podcast. It sounds good. He's very entertaining. He kind of weaves in like some stories in between, with his reviews, and so it just keeps you listening. It's very good. He's a really cool guy. So I say definitely check that out. He's on the Horrorphilia network, so if you're looking for them, just look up Horrorphilia, and he's in their feed. And also you can find his Facebook group on, just look up Horror Corridor, and you'll find that. And then the last podcast I want to give a shout out to is it's the BB and BC podcast, and that stands for Badass Boobs and Body Count podcast. And they're a really funny crew. There's 3 of them. It's Mike, Iris, and Mark, and they talk about just some really cheesy B movies, like bargain bin movies, but they really like give them like a serious review, and they're very entertaining and funny, and they have a really great sense of humor on that show. And so anyway, so they talk about those movies. They do movie reviews. They usually do 1 movie review an episode, and they do like a lot of cheesy B movies, kind of like like one of the last ones they did was King Kong from the 70s, and also like Not of This Earth from the late 80s with Tracy Lords. So they just do some cheesy B movies, and it's really fun. So I'd say check those guys out. They have a Facebook group. Just look up BB and BC on Facebook, and it's a good group on there. A lot of people sharing things, and you can find them on Stitcher and iTunes. Like all of these, you can find on iTunes or Stitcher. So Dakota, let the audience know where they can reach you if they would like to.
Yeah, guys. Real quick though about my Horror Mino. It actually got hacked, believe it or not. I was trying to get onto it the other day, and my password and everything wasn't working, and I don't know what happened. I reached out to them, and they said that there was nothing they could really do. I just had to make a new account. So I'm gonna probably make a new account here in the next couple of days. If you guys want to best way to get hold of me right now is through email. If you guys want to email me at daxshadowbane@gmail.com. I normally check my email like 600 times a day anyway, so I'll see your messages. And real quick, something I kind of wanted to add here at the end. There's an app on Google Play called Shadow Wars. Kind of takes these elements of horror. A lot of characters from like horror stories, like we talked about Sam Hain being the spirit of Halloween, and actually they just uploaded a new one, Krampus, the evil spirit of Halloween, or not Halloween, Christmas. I mean, it's actually a very interesting game. I downloaded it here on my tablet and I was playing it a little bit. Pretty fun game. But no, I mean, if you guys just want to reach out to me, it's daxshadowbane@gmail.com. We could talk about some horror movies, talk about what you guys like about our horror podcast, and I'll see if we can kind of squeeze in some of your guys' share your guys' questions and reviews.
That wraps up episode 17. And so thanks for joining us as we talked about Krampus and the Goat Man and A Christmas Horror Story. So remember, guys, to take a closer look at the world around you, and you may just find that it's stranger and more mysterious than you thought, especially in the Black Cat Shadow.